If you are an XRP holder, this video is for you. I will reveal the one and only signal that will either send us to the moon, either send us to the ground. By the end of the video, you will know exactly how to anticipate the next major move of XRP. I will also share my personal targets just in case we go down in the weeks to come. This video will be in two parts. In the first part, we are going to review some charts to understand what is going on right now with the price. The second part of the video will be dedicated to the signal that will impact XRP but also the whole crypto market. So, are you ready? If you are, without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Crypto Lab. Today we are going to start with Bitcoin. As you know, Bitcoin is still the king of the market, so we cannot analyze any crypto asset without taking a glance at Bitcoin first. In my last video, we talked about the cloud line indicator in white and the spotlight indicator in yellow. We said that major pivot points happen when we enter or when we leave the yellow interval. For example, here it was the COVID crisis, we had a major pivot point. Here it was the very top of Bitcoin in 2017, it was also a major pivot point. In addition, we said also that above the clouds, so above the white line, we are staying bullish, but as soon as we start going below it, we become bearish and we have to be prepared for a capitulation. This video is about XRP, so I won't go further into Bitcoin analysis, so just remember this. If we zoom in on the candle of last week, just right here, this candle is bearish for two reasons. First, we have a huge rejection from the red line. As a reminder, the red line is part of the pi cycle indicator. And we know for a fact that here we used it as a support. You can see it, right? Here we used it as a support. Then here we crossed it. We used it also as a support. But starting from here, we crossed it to the downside. And right now we are using it as a resistance. So, as I was saying, we have a big week because we tested the line and we got rejected in a strong way. And the second reason why I think that this candle is very bearish is the fact that we closed below the cloud line. You see it in white? We've been below the clouds for 1 week, just right here, and for the second week in a row. And we tried to go above it, but we got rejected from it. And this is a bearish sign. So we cannot be bullish unless we go back above the clouds, guys. For now, we are definitely in a bearish area. And if we go back in history, you can remember that every time that we couldn't hold the cloud as a support and that we crossed it, we were close to a capitulation. It was the case here, and even before here we crossed the cloud line, we had a capitulation. Here also it was the same thing. Okay, you can see it here. We crossed it, we go into a capitulation. We crossed it here, we went into a capitulation. We crossed it here, we went into a capitulation, right? And right now we have some bad signs saying that we are about to cross the clouds. I know that it's quite hard to hear somebody telling you that the current trend is bearish, but that's the reality of the chart. And on this channel, I will always always share non-biased analysis. I'm just trying to keep my emotions aside because most investors are the puppet of their emotions that get out of control, and I used to be one of them. So I know what it feels like to wish that what we want will happen. But the thing is, you can wish all day long, the market doesn't care. So my advice to you, forget about your feelings, build the best strategy that you can and stick to it. As an option, you can also subscribe to the channel. Now it's time to talk about XRP using the trend line chart. I will give you an overview of the current situation, and just after we will jump into the second part of the video about the signal that you should pay attention to. The yellow line is what I call the trend line. It's a moving average that is doing a decent job at telling us what to expect from XRP. There are three keys to understand the relationship between XRP and this line. First, below it, we are bearish. Second, above it, we are bullish. And before being officially bullish, after crossing the line from below to above, we have to retest the line as a support. I will just share a few examples. For example, you can see that here we were below the yellow line, but we pierced it. We tried to retest it as a support, but we couldn't, and we went down. Here it was the same thing. We pierced the line. We tried to retest it as a support, but we couldn't. We went down. Here again, we pierced it. We couldn't hold the line as a support, and we went lower. Here it was the same thing. We tried to retest it as a support successfully for a few weeks, but here we couldn't, and we went lower. And it was the same thing again and again. So remember that every time that we are below it, first we need to cross it, retest it as a support successfully before going higher. And if we pay attention to the current situation, you can see that we crossed the line in November of last year. And ever since, we've been using the line as a resistance. You see that we crossed it here, then we used it as a resistance. Here we used it as a resistance again for these two candles. Here we tested it, we got rejected from it. Here again we tested it, we got rejected. And here again we tested it and we got rejected in a strong way. In addition, XRP has been making lower highs again and again and again and again, guys. So we are definitely in a downtrend. That said, the only thing saving us right now is this orange line, which is the 180 exponential moving average on the weekly time frame. Do you remember? It was holding us back in the day, just right here. So this situation is pretty similar to this one, because after breaking the yellow line, we went straight to this moving average and we had a bounce. And here it was the same thing. We went down and we retested the 180 exponential moving average. Here again, we retested the line and we tested the orange line again, and we had a pretty strong bounce. But so far, we have the trend line above us that is still a resistance, and that is rejecting us from the upside. Right now, the price is also flirting with the critical level, the area we used to use as a resistance for months when we were here, and here again. And this very area is now a support. We know that we bounce from it when we were here, and here again we bounced from it, okay? But the bounces are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So far it's a support, but for how long, time will tell. But what I can say is this: if XRP goes below the critical level and below the orange line, the market structure will be broken and it will definitely be bearish, guys. So I hope it's clear. For now, XRP is bouncing perfectly between those two lines, but it will have to make a decision soon. Now it's time to move to the signal that I was talking about. I will explain step by step the reasoning behind the signal and why it's so powerful. It's a signal that comes from traditional markets, but today we are going to give it a little twist to make it more accurate for the crypto market. First, you can notice that I am using the 3 days time frame. This is a key element to the process, so please don't forget it. Then you need to display 2 moving averages. The first one in green is the 50 moving average. It's a simple moving average. And in red, we have the 200 moving average. And the last component of this signal is to look for crosses between those two lines. Usually, people use it on the daily time frame. But XRP and the whole crypto market in general is way too volatile to only use it on this time frame. Remember that the greater the time frame, the stronger the trend. And as a moving average is an estimate of the trend, signals on this time frame has less false signal and a greater impact on price action. If we go on the daily time frame, look how many false signals we have. Look. Here, for example, we have a cross. So you can say that maybe XRP will go higher from here, but it's not the case and we went down. It was a false signal, right? Here it was the same thing. We have a cross, so maybe we can say that XRP will go up, but then it crossed it again to the downside and we had this capitulation. Here, for example, again, we had a cross, but XRP didn't went below the 200 moving average. So it was again a false signal. Here again, we have a cross, a second cross, and here a cross again. So you see that we cannot use these moving averages on this time frame. We have too many signals and that doesn't mean anything. But if we switch to the 3 days time frame, it's totally different. Why? Because we have no false signal. It's that simple. And in fact, I will switch to the Bytestamp chart because we have more history. And as you can see, for example, here we have what we call a death cross because we have the 50 moving average crossing below the 200 moving average. So this was bearish and it stayed like this for a while using the 200 moving average as a resistance. You can see it clearly. Here, for example, here again, we used it as a resistance again. And you see that we have a cross just right here between the green line and the red line. And this was the first element of the signal. But yes, one thing that I forgot to say, and it is very, very important, is we need 2 conditions to say that it is bullish or bearish. We need the cross indeed. If we have a closer look at it, you will see it. We need the cross, but we also need the price to be above the 200 moving average. What do I mean by that? If you have the green line, so the 50 moving average crossing above the red line, it's not enough. It's the first condition, but we need a second condition to say that it is bullish. It's to have the price above the red line, which is the 200 moving average and which is the long-term trend line. So this means that we need the cross and the price above the long-term trend line. So you can see that when we got the cross just right here between the green line and the red line, the price went below the red line. So we missed one condition, and the true signal was just right here. Why? Because we have the green line above the red line and the price above the red line. Okay, and this was the official signal, and that's why we got a moonshot just after. Is it clear? Let's move on to the rest of the analysis. You see that here it was the same thing. We have a cross, but this time it was a green line going below the red line. This means that this was bearish, but we needed also the price to be below the long-term trend line, which is the red line, and this happened just right here. Okay, so here we had the official signal that was saying that this was a bear market according to this indicator. And starting from here, we started using the 200 moving average as a resistance. It was the case in the past when we were here, and here it was the same thing, because look, here again we tested it as a resistance. Let's move on. Okay, what's next? You see that here again we had a cross and the price above the long-term line, the long-term trend, right? And we had a moonshot, and we kept the green line above the red line for a very long time, and in fact it is still the case, and the price is bouncing between the green line and the long-term trend, which is the 200 moving average. And while I'm speaking, you can see that XRP is trying to hold the line as a support. So if you understood my explanations, you can understand what needs to happen to see XRP going down in a strong way. We need to see a cross between the green line and the red line. So far, you can see that we had a cross saying that we were in a bull market, and right now nobody knows what XRP will do, but for a fact I know that if we have a cross between those two lines, it will not be good, guys, and we will have a dump in the market for sure. So right now XRP has two options, because it will not go sideways forever. XRP can continue to go down, and we will have an official death cross on the 3-day time frame, and I'm afraid that this will put us in a bear market for months. Or XRP wakes up and avoid the cross, and this will give confidence to the buyers that the price doesn't want to go down. The magic about this indicator is that it works for all your favorite coins. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin case is very interesting because you can see it clearly, okay? Here you can imagine that we had a cross between the 200 weeks moving average and the green line, and this was the very first scenario that was telling us that we were in a bull market, okay? After this, look what happened. Here we have a cross between the green line and the red line, and we went into a capitulation, okay? So let me circle it. We have a cross and Bitcoin went into a capitulation, right? And after this, the rest was history. We had a cross, we have the price above the 200 weeks moving average, and this was the perfect time to enter into Bitcoin because it was saying that the price would go up. After this, again, we had a strong bull run, and we had this cross, and Bitcoin went into a capitulation again. Okay, so it was the same thing here, and it happened here again. Okay, so we had the cross, we have the price crossing the long-term trend, which is the red line, and we had a capitulation. Here, you see it also. We have the price crossing the long-term trend, we have the cross, and we went into a capitulation. And right here, you can see that we have the cross, so this was bullish. We have the price above the long-term trend, which was good, okay? And after we have the COVID crisis, but look, the relationship between the green line and the red line. We didn't have any cross because we went to the downside pretty fast, but we went up pretty fast also, so we avoided the cross, and this was a very strong signal saying that the buyers was winning the war and that the price wanted to go up. And as we avoided the cross, we had a moonshot. So right now, Bitcoin is using the long-term trend as a support. We tested it once here and twice, and right now we are testing it again. Let's zoom in, you will see. You see it here. So for now we are holding it as a support, but for how long, time will tell. But what I can say is this: if we cross it, it's a warning sign, because we know that in the past, when we were here, for example, after crossing it, we went down. Okay? Here again, after crossing it, we used it as a resistance once, twice, and we went down. And what pushed us to the downside was the cross. Okay? The cross following the price trending below the long-term trend line in red. Okay? And the only difference is this case, because here we had the cross, we had the price going below the long-term trend line, but after this we didn't have the death cross between the green line and the red line, and that's why the price continued to go up. And right now, as we are holding this as a support, we know that if Bitcoin is crossing the long-term trend line, and after this we get a cross between the green line and the red line, we will have a capitulation, and this will be an amazing opportunity for you to buy Bitcoin. Okay, so now let's talk about the targets. As you know, we have the mountain indicator telling us about the bottoms of XRP. It was the case here, here, here again, and I know for a fact that if XRP crosses the 180 moving average, my next target would be this area, so around $0.37. It would be the perfect price to see XRP having a strong bounce to the upside. But so far XRP is still above the orange line, which is a good sign, and so far we've been using it as a support. So let's hope that it stays this way and that from now we will go up. But as I said, last week was pretty bearish for Bitcoin, so if I were you, I would prepare for the worst just in case it happens. But remember, if it happens, if we see the market going down, it's an amazing opportunity to buy some coins, guys. Okay, so just remember this, have your strategy, have your plan, because you need to be prepared for all the scenarios. If you liked the content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you think about this analysis in the comments section. That's all for today's video. It's time to leave the crypto lab. Thanks for watching. Do not ever be afraid to make new experiments, and if someone tells you you're crazy, just tell them. Time will tell.